What is up, everybody? And welcome to the very first episode of the Pop Cult Cast, where we talk about anything and everything pop culture. And I mean anything. We have a stacked topic list today, spanning from Amber Heard v. Depp to the new season of The Boys. Today, we got with me my friend slash co-host, Caleb Sprouse. How you doing, Caleb?
Going on? I'm doing well. How are you, Jordan?
Pretty good. I'm ready to get into it. I'm excited. This is, like I said, this is the inaugural episode. And, pop culture is very important to us. We like talking about everything in the world. And hopefully, we have some good conversations too, which I have no doubt. Just some behind the scenes. We had a little practice episode about 2 weeks ago, and we had some pretty good conversations there. So I'm pretty sure we're going to kill it today. So our first topic for today is the Summer Games Fest. So, Kayla, I kind of want to ask you first, what kind of idea do you have of Summer Games Fest for like right now?
So I'm guessing that it's like a E3 type event. I'm not sure who the host is. I've actually never heard of Summer Game Fest before, but it looks like they have things like Aliens and the new Modern Warfare that they premiered looks at.
Right. Actually, perfect that you said E3 because this year, I think last year as well, E3 was canceled because, of course, of COVID. And this year, I'm not really sure why it was canceled. I know that Summer Games, actually, no, I take that back. I was going to say that Summer Games Fest didn't have an in-person event, but it actually did. So I actually don't know why E3 was canceled this year. I would need to look more into that. But you pretty much nailed on the head. It's just a games festival showing all the brand new games and everything that the industry has to offer so far. So I want to kind of get into the highlights of the event. So it started on the 9th with Sony's State of Play. So basically, it's just like, a Nintendo. Do you know about the Nintendo Directs or anything like that?
No, I haven't heard of Nintendo Direct. Yeah. What's that?
So it's basically just like a show showing like the new games coming out, new DLC. It's basically like you say E3, but the big things that come out of that event were, so it started off with the Resident Evil 4 remake, which is it's an iconic horror game for those that don't know. And for right now, Capcom has been doing a lot of Resident Evil remakes. They started with Resident Evil 2 remake. They did the Resident Evil 3 remake, which wasn't the best. But then now we're on the Resident Evil 4 remake. And I'm so hyped because RE4, if you don't know, Resident Evil is probably my favorite video game franchise. So I'm so excited to see what they can change with that story because if you played RE4, the story isn't the most consistent. And with the new remakes, it's sort of been the story of Resident Evil is kind of jumbled right now, especially from Resident Evil 8, which does connect to the older ones. It's just a whole bunch of like crazy, like sort of spider webbing going on. But
I feel like that happens when you have 8+ games that span 2 decades. It gets a little hard to keep it together,
especially when it's a company like Capcom that doesn't have the best reputation of making like super like coherent games. It's nothing like a Kingdom Hearts or anything or a Metal Gear Solid, but they're working on it. But other than that, from that event going onward, let me see my notes. So the event also took a big priority in VR sort of implementation. So the PS VR 2 is coming out soon-ish. I think it's coming out sometime either this year or next year. But they showed a lot of just VR games. I'm not too sold on the technology yet, but it looks very it looks good. I'm not gonna lie, it looks pretty decent. Oh, my bad.
What's the innovations with the VR2?
What do you mean by innovations?
Like what's the big jump that we're going to be seeing from the PSVR 1 and the PSVR 2?
Right. So just going back a little bit, Steam sort of dropped their own VR headset. I think they were sort of the first to kind of implement technology like that. Yeah. And after that, I know there's the Quest VR 2, which is getting a lot of popularity. I know a lot of people got that for Christmas, past Christmas. And people really like that sort of technology right now. So I would assume it's pretty decent. But I guess the big innovations for PSVR 2 is that it's just more like the graphical fidelity. And I guess it's just more, because if you look at the trailer, which I'll put B-roll in, there's like more interactivity. So like you can like sort of like, it's sort of with Resident Evil 4, where you can like kind of like throw around your gun a little bit. It's kind of goofy, but it's the realisticness of it that you can do that in the game is like just really dope. So they made a big sort of deal about that. But then after that, they showed, which was probably my favorite reveal, was Street Fighter 6. So
Okay.
yeah, so for those that don't know, I'm a huge fighting game person. I've been playing fighting games since I think well, so I've been playing fighting games for forever. Like my first fighting game was Tekken 5 on PS2, something like that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but I didn't get serious until Street Fighter 5, which came out in 2016. So to finally make that whole like big circle into Street Fighter 6 is really exciting for me, especially since Street Fighter 5 didn't have the best rollout plan. It was kind of revered as like it sort of was the decline of Capcom's fighting game division with like Street Fighter 5 and MVCI. But it looks really good. Like actually it's the first Street Fighter to have a realistic sort of visual to it. So if you look at a trailer, it looks pretty realistic. It's pretty dope. Yeah.
And it's still keeping to that, side scroller type action.
Exactly. So it's
I
not
feel
like
like
Tekken or anything like that.
I feel like it has to look phenomenal with what's capable with things like Unreal Engine and what we're seeing with next gen consoles when you have such a limited amount of space, I guess you could say, you're working with. And that makes me pretty excited because I know it feels like for the longest time, a lot of the side scroller action games are very cartoony. And as much as I like, just the Mortal Kombat style action, I feel like a step up in graphics was always just what I wanted to really feel it, if you catch my drift.
100%. And like I remember I was talking to some friends, like they don't want a realistic looking Street Fighter, which I kind of get because the Street Fighter series has always had that like not cartoony look, but it's more like it's a video game kind of thing, And with this new engine, they're using the RE engine, which debuted with the Resident Evil 2 remake. So they're doing it in-house, which is more convenient for them. But also looks really good with some of these characters. Like, of course, it's still early and they need to kind of work on some stuff. But like my dream for this game when it wasn't announced was like I want to feel like I'm in the streets fighting with people, like Street Fighter. Like, and for them to completely nail that sort of feeling is phenomenal. Then wrapping up that event for the state of play was Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 15 was how would I say this? I think it was widely revered. Like people love the Final Fantasy series, but for that game in particular, it felt very rushed to a lot of critics. And I just recently played it during our holiday break from Webster, and you could tell that was really rushed. Like especially towards the last act of the game. Like I wouldn't know how to explain it, but they kind of like wrote off everything to a time skip, basically. Sorry for spoilers, but there's a time skip in Final Fantasy 15, and it just sort of like circumvents all the character building that Final Fantasy's like looked for. So looking at the Final Fantasy 16, like the graphics are like it's amazing, man. Like if you had the chance, I would definitely look at it just to. If anything, if you're not interested in the Final Fantasy story, like the graphics will definitely get you. But looking at that game more, like they're kind of going away from the party approach that Final Fantasy is meant for. So
really,
yeah, 100%, yeah, for sure, because it's basically focused. Well, so here's the thing: the plot seems to be surrounded around like a European kingdom, but the main protagonist is for sure. They want to tell you that's the main protagonist. There isn't like a party around him. But to sort of circumvent this new style, there are these things called like I think they're called like icons in the game, where like there's these huge sort of Titan creatures, where it's like it's kind of weird now. It's hard to explain it to someone who doesn't like know Final Fantasy. That could probably explain it better than me, but basically just these huge like Titans that give you powers, whatever. But that's sort of circumventing the whole party aspect of it, and then just going from there.
I think it's amazing that they're still continuing the story for Final Fantasy to this day, correct?
That's the thing. So I also realized fairly recently when I played Final Fantasy 15 is that, like you said, like this franchise has been going on for probably decades at this point, right? So I don't know if they started with this, but I know at least Final Fantasy 15 and 14 and 13, they don't have connecting stories. So it's all like its own thing, which makes it perfect for newcomers just to get in and just play the game. Because they're beautiful games. Like if there's anything about the Final Fantasy games, that they're like graphical showcases. So if you just want to make your eyes have a good time, then play those.
I feel like I got to check that out because one of the things that always kept me away from Final Fantasy is the number that you see attached to it. Because you're like, oh God, how am I supposed to fit 9, 10, 11, 12 games worth of knowledge into my head before I jump in and play this one.
Exactly.
And I feel like you would have to do something like that because, like you said, new coming gamers to the franchise, they're not going to. They'll probably feel the same way as me.
Especially because Final Fantasy games and JRPGs in general are like 20-hour, 30-hour, 50-hour long games, right? Like I was playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on my Switch, and I looked up how long to beat this game. And it's really like 50 hours to beat this game. I'm like, bro, I don't have that kind of time. Like, I'll finish that game when I'm like 25 or something. Like, nah. But then after State of Play, which was on the 9th, we got to the Summer Games Fest actual day. And through like public reception, it wasn't the coolest or wasn't what people were expecting. But Jeff Keighley, which is the host of the Summer Games Fest, he said in a tweet before the actual event that the event would actually be focusing on games that already been like announced. So it's basically just giving us a better look at like what's to come in terms of like gameplay. But the big, huge bangers from this event. One, since we're both Xbox people, which I also have a PS5, but the biggest one, I guess I would say this is the biggest in terms of like critical like objectivity, but Game Pass, which is easily the best deal in gaming, objectively, is coming to TVs.
Get out of here!
Literally,
holy cow!
Like there's going to be
changer.
There's going to be an app where you can just download it and play these games through the cloud, so you don't even have to have an Xbox. Like, oh, you good?
Yeah, my mirror just fell off its wall. I guess it was the excitement from
that's the power of Xbox. That's the power.
Yeah,
of Xbox,
no kidding.
Right?
I feel like that was always the natural conclusion of, like, I think it was PS Now that came out maybe before Game Pass actually. But I remember the CEO of like Sony Gaming saying, we want this to be on TVs. We want to make it to the point where you don't even need a console to play our games anymore. And when you think about it, yeah, I think we've reached that point in gaming where to have a console or not is a hindrance to them getting content to you. Like, you have to go through the hoops of buying a whole $400, $500 console, and they're going to get more and more expensive as the technology gets, much better and pricier itself. And to have an app means that you can still play with your friends that may be lagging on getting the new console, or they just put it off until they feel like it's, at a discounted rate, etc. But, you can still play. And you're so right, Jordan, when you say that Game Pass is the best deal in gaming. I skipped on it way too long. Like, I slept on it. I really did. Like, I always paid for the live. And if you're already paying $9.99 a month, what is, an additional $4 to have a massive catalog? Like, it really does feel like they have almost everything in there. And what they don't, you just, supplement it with EA Play, and you have pretty much every single game at your fingertips in a stream. And I streamed the NBA 2K game. And in my mind, first time streaming a game, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to have issues. This is going to be like slow. It's going to have like something similar to buffering whenever your internet's too slow for Netflix. No, it was seamless. It was phenomenal.
It didn't buffer at all?
No, it was amazing.
Wow.
Well, I do have the Series X and a, pretty good internet. So
I remember playing on PS Now and like trying the whole cloud streaming thing. And at least on the Sony service, like, it's not an experience that I'll be like, you know what, this could supplement, like downloading games and playing it through that means, because that's my biggest sort of concern with this new service, putting on TVs for how like inclusive it is. Like, that's a mind-blowing thing, right? Like, your grandma can be like, oh, let's get Game Pass and put it on TV and just play it through there. Like, it makes gaming so easy. Like, all you need to do is buy a controller now. And that's awesome. Like, just making it Xbox is really making it to be an ecosystem rather than just like a console, just making gaming so inclusive and so accessible, which is awesome. And it's kind of making me think, since I'm like a PS5 user as well, it's like, dang, like, what is Sony doing to like not even combat this, but like there's nothing that compares to it. Like, I know they're doing a PS Premium that gives you sort of what Game Pass is, but the value is just not there at all. Like, they're just giving you like super vintage games and like, sprinkling in some like demos of like new games to come, but like nothing like getting hundreds of games on the service that you can download right now and then playing it through that. And then Xbox had their conference today, but we'll get that to in a minute. But also from that Summer Games Fest day, there was Callisto Protocol, which was a highlight for me. It's sort of like, you know, the game Dead Space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's from the same guy who made Dead Space 1 that isn't on the team anymore. So it's sort of like his what's the word? His like rising phoenix moment with this game, like really getting into what made Dead Space so great and when it made its downfall back in the day, like just doing that again and harnessing that soul of Dead Space. And it's like, if you want to see some gruesome stuff, man, watch that trailer. It's crazy. It's nuts. What else? So sort of to end that day off, since it wasn't that great. The last bombshell was, do you know the game The Last of Us on PlayStation?
Yeah, it's getting I think part 1 and part 2 are getting a remaster, correct?
Yes, and that's what kind of made, at least me, I'll speak for myself. I just like, why are you remaking The Last of Us 1? Because if you don't know, Last of Us came out maybe 2013-ish, somewhere around that time. The first one came out. Then they did a remaster in 2016 for the PS4. Now they're doing a remake of it again for the PlayStation 5, which it looks incredible. Like the game looks really good, but like it's a game that doesn't really need to have resources put into it to like, I would much rather have Naughty Dog work on another project than waste their resources on this game. But you know, for those who really like the Last of Us series, like it's good for you guys. I'm proud. Like I'm super happy for y'all. But they're also making an HBO Max show of The Last of Us as well. So
really, I thought it was going to be a movie.
No, well, actually, it might be a movie. I would need to check, but I'm pretty sure it's. I bet that's a show. And you know, I was thinking like, you know, they're really trying to milk this franchise, but at the same time, like for those who just don't really like gaming, sitting down and kind of like controlling your character, like they really like those just sitting down and watching a narrative experience, like this show or movie is probably perfect for you guys, like just to see the characters Joel and Ellie and like, their whole adventure. So that's definitely gonna be cool. And then going into the final day, which was the Xbox and Bethesda conference, which was today.
Okay.
The biggest bombshell for me was, so Riot Games is teaming up with Game Pass and Microsoft and basically putting all their content, mixing it with Xbox. So like that's League of Legends, there's Valorant, which is the new sort of FPS that's kind of getting popularity. They're like all their kind of like side games. But just from a value standpoint, getting all the legends in League of Legends costs you about $641. So to get it from Game Pass for only $15 is like, that's a steal.
That's a steal, yeah.
You can't beat that. You also got a look at Diablo 4 coming up, which is like, I love the Diablo franchise. I love the whole loot grind of it, getting like legendary loot and stuff. We also got Starfield first look gameplay. That's like, you know, Starfield, have you heard about that?
Yeah, I know it's sadly the game that is sandwiched in between Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
I say sadly because I'm a massive Skyrim fan. I say Skyrim, not Elder Scrolls, because that's how I was introduced to Elder Scrolls.
Right.
And I retroactively tried to play Oblivion, but there was just something so special about ES5 and the hype I've had. You know, it's been 11 years since Skyrim came out, and we're waiting on the next game, which is Starfield, and then Elder Scrolls 6.
Right.
Granted, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to play it, and I bet it's going to be phenomenal because I feel like Bethesda really can do no wrong. Excuse me, there was a game in between Starfield and Elder Scrolls 5. It was Fallout 4.
And Fallout 4, Fallout 76, and then now Starfield.
I don't remember that disaster that was
we don't talk about Fallout 76 over here, but yeah, I totally forgot that Elder Scrolls 6 was in development. I remember back in, I think it was 2019 when they revealed that they're working on Elder Scrolls 6, but Starfield is that sort of in-between game for them. And from gameplay impressions, I think the game looks okay. I think it looks pretty cool. I don't know if you know the game No Man's Sky, but it sort of looks exactly like that, but you know, the realism and like, you know, what you come to expect from AAA gaming in 2022. But and the big bombshell at the end of that trailer is that, so within like the Milky Way galaxy, right, there's probably like, I don't know how many planets there are in Milky Way galaxy. Maybe that's just, you know, my bad education, but he just basically said like there's thousands of planets to visit in the game.
Holy crap.
Exactly, right? And I'm just like, first of all, like, I think that's really dope. Like, I was just like, my mouth was literally just dropped. I was like, wow, that's a huge scope. At the end of the day, like, this game is coming out in 2023 at some point. I'm like, is that too ambitious to really believe that I can go to every single 1,000 planets and like visit, hundreds of thousands of people? I'm like, I just don't believe it. I gotta see it.
I feel like that's just not possible. Like, I don't know. Like, playing a modded Skyrim can cause my Xbox Series X to crash.
Yeah, right.
And part of it is I love adding NPCs in with mods. I don't know if we could handle that many people. And when they're saying visit planets, like, what are we going to get? Are we going to get just like barren landscape planets, like a Tatooine style thing where there's nothing really there and you forget about it? Or is it going to be like fleshed out where we have, individual planets with the depth of a game like Cyberpunk? Doubtful on that end, highly doubtful.
Right.
But if they can pull it off, even to a minor degree, like, I would sacrifice, graphics and that type of fidelity for an expansive world environment, and hopefully they deliver.
And if there's anybody that I'll put my faith into when it comes to narrative, it would probably be Bethesda, like one of those companies I'll put faith into narrative. But that game looked pretty dope. But other than that, and then they ended off with Kojima, the maker of I didn't even like that one. They ended off with Kojima saying that there's not a new game. Well, they're making a new game with Microsoft, but there's no like concrete details. Which when I saw Kojima on the screen, I screamed, man. I love Kojima so much. Even though I don't like Death Stranding that much, but like I respect the guy for his creative vision. I mean, Foxhound in the back. I love Kojima games and like what his vision is. So for him to be partnering with Xbox for potentially an exclusive is huge, right? Like, I can't wait to see what they're working on together. It probably won't come out for the next, 3 years, but hey, it's in development. But that is the end of Summer Games Fest talk. Let's see. Let's go into our next topic if you didn't have anything else to add there, Caleb.
I'm just curious before we move on about like, did Kojima, and I guess I think he has his own company now or development team. Did they announce a new game?
They did not announce a new game for the Microsoft part. They are working on a game called Pragmata. It's going to be it's going to be multi-platform, so there's no exclusives. But do you actually know what his company was called? It's not called. I know what the logo. Let me look it up real quick. Kojima.
Isn't the logo like literally the Fox logo from Metal Gear Solid?
It's like a skull in it. I think it's called Kojima Productions, but yeah. We have nothing concrete right now, just saying that Microsoft and they are working on a game. Actually, there is rumors that it's going to be a horror game called Overdose. It's based on a character from Death Stranding in the game. I forgot her name, but the character's whole gimmick is that she sees like, actually, I don't want to guess the character's whole story, but it's pretty messed up, and I can see why they would attach like a horror sort of game to her character. But yes, it's coming. But
I feel like if there's any game that doesn't need any type of expansion, it's Death Stranding. Like, I want to say this about Kojima. I agree with you completely. I think he's a visionary. I think he is, without a doubt, the most creative individual in the video game industry. I think he has been for a long time. And that's, for me, part of his problem. So when Kojima was working on Metal Gear Solid 3, just the third one, the fourth one, I don't even think had been planned out at this point in time. It looked like he was going to be done with the Metal Gear franchise. And every game after that, they're like, oh, he's going to be done. And one of the problems he was having was creative issues. Like, there were other writers and developers involved that had quite a bit of sway and input. Obviously not as much as him. It was always his vision.
Right.
But the creative differences, in my view, made those games better. Like, I think Kojima needed to be checked. And I felt like my belief was affirmed whenever I saw Death Stranding, which was just like a gothic acid trip, and not like a Tim Burton-esque, like it's great kind of way, but in a like, dear God, what am I looking at? Like, whenever I saw that baby in the jar, and what's his name, Norman Reedus
Hmm.
from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I was like, oh god, this is not gonna be it. And it was right after Metal Gear Solid 5, like not even what, a year or two. Like I feel like Sony immediately paraded him around, like, look what we got,
Hmm.
exclusive incoming.
Right.
I feel like he always needs to be checked, no matter where he's at. Otherwise, he'll say, put something absolutely ridiculous into his game that's just immersion breaking because it's so tongue in cheek, breaks the fourth wall. He'll do something that will pull you out of it. I know
Hmm.
you said it's horror related, though. That gets me excited because
Yeah.
he did have the Silent Hills concept, which for whatever reason never became a game. And
Wait,
it
actually,
looks
was Silent Hills a Kojima production?
like, I think he was involved with it.
Yeah,
Like, I think it
actually,
was him and
right.
Guillermo
Yeah.
del Toro, and it
Hmm.
had so much hype. And typically, when something has that level of hype, there's a delivery to it.
Right. And we have to remember
But
too,
nothing.
Silent Hills is only a demo too. And for it to
Mhm.
have that big of a cultural like want for that game to continue, like that says a lot about Kojima's like just attention to like detail and like especially
Mhm.
for because that will be his first, I think that's his first go at horror. And for it to be that successful, like imagine a
Mhm.
whole game surrounded by that concept. And it's like I said, like that whole game, that whole demo is so beloved. But speaking about beloved, we have Miss Marvel. The ratings are crazy. You know,
Crushing it.
yeah, for the tomato meter for Miss Marvel, I believe it's a 97 right now. So
Oh
that
my
would,
goodness.
yeah, so I think that would make it the best critic reviewed Marvel movie right now. But let me see real quick. I think that dethrones Shang-Chi, which was originally the best Marvel MCU rated tomato meter project, but now that's gone down since. So
That's wild to me. Like, Shang-Chi was good. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I really
mhm.
appreciated that we're starting to see Marvel kind of branch out and tell stories that can, be impactful and relevant all across the world. I know people's criticism with that one be like, oh, they're pandering to the People's Republic of China. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, but there's literally, like Chinese Americans that would think like this type of story is impactful to them. And it worked for me. Like, phenomenal change of setting. However, I don't think having a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes really encompasses
Yeah, and
that
like
film's value.
right, and that's the thing I'm going to bring up just a bit. It's just like I think that's the issue with Rotten Tomatoes, especially with this new culture of like MCU sort of like initial hype. Is that like it over? I feel like it overinflates the value of these projects. Like
Mhm.
actually, I think if I let me look it up real quick. I believe Shang-Chi is still the highest. Uh, uh, wait, let me pull it up real quick. Rotten
It has
Tomatoes.
the best tomato score of any
Yeah,
MCU film.
audience rated. Actually, it's not even Marvel. It's the highest rated superhero movie of all
Mhm.
time. And like I remember hearing
Wow.
that at first, I'm like, y'all like that movie that much? Like, I just didn't like
That's
Shang.
so
Like,
insane. Like, I know that the tomato meter isn't like the same as Metacritic. So 97 doesn't mean it's a 97 out of 100
mhm,
type film. It just means that out of 100 critics, 97 of them gave it a positive review. And I was looking at Miss Marvel, kind of bring it back, and there was a lot of 3 out of 4s, 3 out of 5s, but that's still considered a positive review.
right.
Granted, with the level of hype that it generated, I can't wait to jump in personally.
Mhm. Well, Miss Marvel is the 12th MCU Phase 4 project so far. And we talked about this in our little like preparatory episode, but doing the math, MCU projects have been dropping every month
Every month.
for a year. So if you're feeling superhero fatigue right now, like I totally feel you, man. Like it's at this point, I feel like a month MCU project per month is just getting a little bit too ridiculous. But since Caleb hasn't watched the episode, I'll give my little opinions. Like, well, first I want to say that Iman Vellani, she plays Miss Marvel, or what's her actual name in the show? Ooh, let me do that real quick. Miss Marvel cast. Oh yeah,
I think
Kamala
it
Khan.
is.
Yeah, how did I
Yep,
forget
Kamala
Kamala
Khan.
Khan? Because she's also in the Avengers video game, which I played. But yeah, I think she's really dope. Like so far, the show goes off. It's easily the most stylistic Marvel show you'll see. Like there's so
Mhm.
much style. Like I really like it, and it's also easily the funniest. Like I'm pretty hard to make laugh, but like there are so many moments in that first episode that it's like, man, I was cracking up. Another thing I'll give the show is that it's better than Moon Knight, but that's not very hard for him to do.
It's
like
better than Moon Knight.
it's
better than,
it's better than Moon Knight. I'm confused to say if it's better than Hawkeye, because I really liked Hawkeye. I know I'm pretty much in the minority there, but Hawkeye felt good for the season. It was a nice little holiday sort of special kind of thing, more than its own little season. Because I think it's a one-shot sort of series. I think there's not going to be a Hawkeye season 2, but it felt nice for the Christmas season, like having like the whole Christmas little layout. So I think I would say Miss Marvel is probably better than Hawkeye, but it's for sure not better than Captain America: Winter Soldier. Oh no, it's Captain America. Sorry,
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah. WandaVision, Loki is definitely not better than those. I think because you have to be objective here. Like, there's only one episode, so like for one episode for it to already have this praise, it's like, I don't know what's going on. Like, why are you guys giving this show such a high praise right now? Because like, I mean, there's nothing. It's for me, it's like the show, when you watch it, you're gonna get that sense of like sort of like a high school teenage angst sort of storyline. And while it's fun, as well as cool, like I have to see more before I give it any sort of crowning rewards or whatever. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's like one of the downsides of how TV shows are reviewed. Like, they're reviewed with their pilot or their first episode, and especially with something like Loki, you see how the story is important all the way up until the end, and how a TV show concludes itself or its season, I think, really does matter.
Yeah.
For this show, I want to talk about the representation in it. Like, I think this is the first time, like when I was thinking about this, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a Muslim person depicted in such a positive light in film or TV in my life. And, we're the post 9/11 generation. We were like little kids when 9/11 took place. And I feel like that affected like media depictions to an extreme negative. Like, I feel like if you turned on CSI or not CSI, NCIS, they would be like apprehending, some Arabic dude.
Right.
In pretty much every other episode, and the stereotype from the 90s when they would almost only use like Russian or Arabic people as the villains. And that was it. I think this is a welcome change, especially when you have places like New York City, which is humongous Muslim American population. Minnesota has a massive Somali population. So I think this is actually like timely, like in a really good way. Like, she's a superhero, and hopefully she's a huge deal to the MCU as a whole, because everything I'm reading about how her character has come across, and I want to ask you, like, if you feel this way, they said her character is like phenomenal. Like, she really sticks out.
Well, I want to go back to your point on representation. Like, I really love the representation in this project because it feels so genuine. It feels like there's been love put into this I would love to see how many like Muslim people are put onto the production of this project, but it feels so genuine. I feel like I just walked into like a Muslim American's house and like we're just kind of chilling. Like, I'm really taking in that culture, right? And it feels very good. And like, shout out to Iman Vellani. She plays Kamala Khan. Like, this is her first major role. I think I said that.
Holy cow.
Yeah, this is her first major role in anything. So like, shout out to her. And fun fact, we share the same birthday, so I'm rooting for her. Yeah, she's sick. But yeah, like her as a character, I think it's very I wouldn't say it's like groundbreaking or anything, but I would say like she's a lovable character. Like, you can't really hate her. Like, she's so likable. Like, she's so fun. Like, I'm telling you, this show is hilarious. Like, they go into this I don't know how big of a spoiler that is, so I won't say it. But it's definitely fun. It's a fun watch. I'll say that.
Since you're saying it's hilarious, that makes me even more hyped, because one thing I'll say about Moon Knight is all the jokes fell flat for me. Maybe it's just because every episode I watched was just not having a good time. Like, there was always something that I was just like, wow, this is garbage. The MCU did this. Like, even Oscar Isaac could not redeem that show or its humor for me.
Right.
And in fact, I think Oscar Isaac just did not have the comedic touch for certain points in the role. Like, I felt like the whole split personality came off like self-parody at points.
Right. And the big like praise that people give Moon Knight, to go on a little tangent on Moon Knight, is just saying that it doesn't feel like a same sort of MCU formula like that we've been having for like the past like several years, which I agree is definitely its own thing. But like, if we want to take that perspective, like, then let's keep it out. Let's say how it is. Like, Daredevil is the best MCU project. Like that project nails the not MCU formula, its own thing, sort of, liking to. That's the big appeal about Daredevil. It's like it's so different, it's so grounded, and just so like brutal, and it's perfect. And I can't wait for them to display that character more with the MCU now that he's officially canon, which is amazing.
Which means the Punisher is also canon. And since we're like hyping up Daredevil, the Punisher is technically a part of Daredevil, because I think the second season, that was when they started the whole court case and everything revolving around the Punisher.
Right.
People said that Moon Knight was like representation for people with mental health issues and disabilities, and that it really crushed it. I disagree. I didn't feel that way at all. I felt like it was more like a supernatural thing than an illness. And in contrast, you have the Punisher in the Daredevil show, which I feel like was one of the most amazing depictions of PTSD. And it was now it's canon, the MCU. It was phenomenal. It completely different tone from the rest of the MCU. It took it very serious that Frank Castle is a man, plagued by so much. Right. And I feel like those really human things is what made Daredevil work so well. Like, these characters weren't just characters. They were people with lives, things going on, their own motivations. And if something wants to drift away from the established way of doing things in the MCU, that's what you have to be looking to in the future. Not like Moon Knight. I will never say a good thing about Moon Knight, probably.
You know what? And like with Hawkeye a little bit, they did try that sort of take with having these characters more grounded a little bit. And while I think it worked, you can still definitely feel that Disney-ism towards it, more magical, sort of more like just not like what we saw with Daredevil and like the whole Defender storyline on Netflix, which hopefully they can keep that same essence, when moving forward, when they actually do bring everybody back, which is going to be so awesome. Because I loved every Defender. Like, I love Jessica Jones, I love Daredevil, I'm not everyone. I did not like Iron Fist at all. That was pretty.
No, Iron Fist was booty.
Not the greatest. But any more to talk about with Miss Marvel in particular? Anything to add?
No, I'm excited for it. Hopefully we see, since you mentioned it, like a slowdown in MCU content.
Yes.
Because I do feel the fatigue personally. Like, I feel like the spacing in between each of their properties is what contributed to the majesty of them always. Like, I think, what wasn't it, like 2 years in between Avengers Infinity War and Endgame? Maybe it was just a year.
So. I actually think it was a year, But
still, that wait time is what made Endgame better, like that anticipation. And I know that there's no buildup to Miss Marvel, but still having it distance between whatever else lets everything set in. And because the MCU is still kind of one big story, I feel like you need that. Everything has to set in, be digested, talked about before you move on to the next thing, because I feel like Moon Knight just started a few days ago and we're already here with Miss Marvel.
It feels like no time has passed since we saw Moon Knight, when Moon Knight concluded. And like you said, like, I remember when Endgame ended, it was during that time where the MCU started to pick up more in its like releases. And then now I'm just like, I really wish they would have took a break after Endgame, which I knew would have never happened because, it's Disney, they have to make some money.
Cha-ching, money.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, they couldn't have stopped. And I wish they would have, because that would have gave the writing team, just some time to collect all their, eggs and like just really carefully do everything and put some like expertise into it. And also give the viewers some time to sort of relax, sort of forget about the MCU, and that when it comes back, it's like you're revived and you're ready to go with some more superhero stuff. Because now, which hopefully, like, coming to the boys topic, like there's too much superhero stuff, man. Like, I just feel like the whole genre is kind of getting sort of diluted. And there has to be some sort of, maybe it's just me, I had to take a break, but yeah, that's my sort of take on it.
I feel like we're never going to get a break from it at this point.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like the
unfortunately.
MCU has so much to do with it.
Mhm.
I feel like even the Dark Knight trilogy kind of played a role, but as the MCU got going, the Dark Knight was coming to an end. I feel like superhero films and properties just went so mainstream that it's a part of culture at this point.
Mhm.
Like, I think I may have told you this, but I went to go see Free Guy whenever it came out in the theaters during the pandemic, and there was an Easter egg for Captain America's shield and the Avengers theme. The
Hmm.
entire theater erupted.
What?
Erupted. It was the loudest that they
That's
got
so
for
odd.
anything in the film, and it had nothing to
Yeah.
do with the MCU
Exactly.
just because
There's
of the
nothing. Yeah.
reference.
Mhm. That's so
And
weird.
I feel like that's why it's not going to slow down at this point. Maybe the reason they didn't take a break after Endgame is they looked at those box office receipts and they're like, oh God, we just stepped into money, like
Of
unfathomable
course.
amounts of
Mhm.
money. And then you have like the satire shows like The Boys. I don't know if you've seen it, but I highly recommend it. The DC former streaming service, now it's on HBO Max, Harley Quinn, which is just a
Oh,
satire of like
yeah.
the
The cartoon, right?
DCU. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is
I, it's so
hilarious.
funny. Yeah, it's awesome. But going into, I wanted to bring up a topic real quick. And did I forget? Uh, yeah, I forgot. But I think that's a perfect segue into The Boys season 3. Came
Mhm.
out what last week for first 3 episodes premiere. I'm
Yes.
gonna let you take this one. I'm gonna let you helm this one. So go ahead and start that for me.
So I'm sure everybody that has been getting desensitized to all the superhero content out there has kept up with The Boys because it really is that balance to, the Disneyfication we've seen in the MCU, the happy-go-lucky protagonists, nobody's ever going to get hurt. And then you have The Boys where nothing is held back. There's more gore and violence than a Friday the 13th film from the 80s at the peak of slasher horror.
Right.
Uh, there's menacing characters, amazing characters. And this season, you didn't think it could get any more high octane. You didn't think the story could really just crush it from there. And here we are, 4 episodes in, and I cannot wait. Like, I'll be
Mhm.
sitting in my couch ready to go the second it drops next week with episode 5. Like, it is just that good of a show.
Right.
Outside of superhero anything, I think it is one of the best shows that you can be watching right now, period.
Mhm.
Like, it's up there with things like Better Call Saul, The Walking Dead, The Game of Thrones. You don't have to like all
Wow.
of them to like this, but it is phenomenal storytelling,
Mhm.
phenomenal characters that you'll just probably never forget. I don't think anybody can watch Homelander on the screen and forget what they've seen.
Right. So, putting the series aside and looking strictly at season 3, what are your first impressions on the first 4 episodes?
So the first 3 episodes, I got a little concerned.
Mhm.
There's a time jump between the last season, if I'm not mistaken, and that it kind of doesn't always work. I would
Mhm.
actually say time jumps usually don't work more than they do. Uh, and I felt like we were a little bit in a weird place with how this one started and then the direction it went. Like, what's her name? The Nazi from the last season,
Oh,
Stormfront.
yeah,
Like, she was
Stormfront.
still alive, and I was just like, why are you alive at all? And then immediately killed off. And you're like, why? I feel like, this is just brought back for shock value to rehash old things.
Mhm.
But once the 4th episode, the latest one hit, you realize, okay, so we're not just going to stick around rehashing, old tropes. This story is progressing, and where it's going from here. Like, I feel like you just cannot talk about the 4th episode
Yeah.
or, the episode preceding it, because we're getting to that point where the threat of Homelander to not just the boys or the Seven or anybody involved at Vought that has to work in that building around him is in danger. I'm getting this feeling like this guy's a danger to the whole entire world.
Yeah. And it's like that point. So, all right, I'll bring that point up another time. But I want to say that one of my favorite scenes so far in this season is when Starlight says to a Homelander, he's like, "Do I have to show these tapes about you, crashing this plane or whatever?" And he says, "Go ahead, go do it. Then I will have nothing to lose. I'll take out the satellites. I'll destroy the Pentagon. I'll just kill everybody." I'm like, that is so at one point I was like, 'cause I expected Homelander to be more like just to lose it at one point, because like at the end of season 2, we saw him do that like crazy stuff on the top of the building. You know, he was, I forgot exactly what he's doing, but he looks like he just lost it. He was just like, yeah, on the brink of just doing something really stupid. And that's kind of a point that maybe I'll say I don't really like. I kind of wanted Homelander to be more of that, like just losing it all kind of character. But he seems so calm and collected with everything he's doing, right? He's so planned right now. Like everything he did with like the setup with Vought guy, what's his name? The guy that was in
Stan Edgar.
Yeah, Stan Edgar. When he set up
phenomenal character too.
Awesome character. Like he's so threatening, but not threatening at the same time. He's so smooth with it. I love the actor. Like he exudes that sort of personality so well. But
absolutely.
Like, Homelander setting those type of things up is like, I wonder if I'm just expecting something different from the character, sort of more brutal, like just straight to the point, violent, like what we saw at the end of episode 4, where he just completely slaughters. What's his superhero name? I forgot already. Sort of Starlight's ex-boyfriend.
Oh yeah, he was only in a few episodes, and he was just Dunskies. Yeah. I don't even think you had time to internalize who that character was. He was an ex-boyfriend of Starlight. And like, as soon as she could be like, hey, I have some information on the 7, it's not what you think, keep this to yourself, he immediately goes to probably one of the most fickle characters in the whole entire show, A-Train, and A-Train immediately blabs, because at this point A-Train is just terrified for his life, looking over his shoulder, hoping Homelander isn't listening in on him. And boom, dead immediately. Brutal death.
So I'm curious, are you sold on this sort of like Homelander, like he's super calculated and like he's sort of taking out Vought from like the inside out and making him he's sort of like the head now of Vought, not officially, but he wants to be that sort of figure for the people now?
No, I think Homelander's incredibly impulsive character, actually. And the only reason like he can come across calculating is because at the end of the day, he is so godlike. It's so indestructible that even when you make a wrong decision, he can just turn to extreme violence or intimidation to get the outcome he ultimately wants. And I say he's impulsive because, you know, he killed Starlight's boyfriend almost immediately and left his body on top of a building and flew her back to the crime scene to look at this corpse.
He literally said, I have a view for you, Starlight. Let's go ahead and fly. And I was like, wow.
And what's even funnier about that scene is just before that, we had, you know, Giancarlo Esposito, the guy that plays Stan Edgar, like you said, phenomenal actor, tell him, he's like, listen, Homelander, you're going to mess up. Like, that's why I'm calm about this. Like, I don't even think you'll take that long. I give you a week before you mess up. And he immediately commits a murder of a prominent member of the 7, the newest member of the 7, and a relatively public location where anybody can just like walk up and see, oh, wow, something's going on. And I think he's going to crash. However, this is my theory where the show's going. You're going to follow me. I think it's a good one.
Let's hear it.
I think Homelander is going to incidentally be the hero at the end of the season. Not like he's going to actually be heroic, but we've seen Soldier Boy being introduced, and now it looks like Soldier Boy is actually a weapon that can defeat Homelander. I think Soldier Boy is going to be just as crazy as the 7 has always been. He's going to be, you know, a genocidal maniac. He's going to commit crimes, and the only person that's going to be able to stop him will be Homelander. And Homelander is going to get the approval that he is seeking from, I guess you could say, audience. He just wants a massive popularity rating. I feel like that's where it's going to go. I don't think we're going to see a showdown between the boys and Homelander at this stage of the game, because I feel like Homelander is just starting to get to the character development that we need. Like, it's been such a slow burn. For our listeners, this is about to go not safe for work for a moment, because, you know, we're talking about the boys. It's hard not to. I think it was last season or the season before last, whenever he was on top of that building in the city jerking off. And he says, I can do whatever the fuck I want, is what he says. And I feel like he's been slowly digesting that this entire time, where he's always had immense abilities, but as everybody's turned on him, he's gotten more crass, more rogue. he doesn't want to be controlled or told what to do at all because he seems more so aware. And of course, like his Nazi girlfriend put a lot of the ideas into his head, like, sauced him up even more with, this idea of a superior race. And he's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I be? I'm literally able to shoot lasers out of my eyes, fly at the speed of light. I'm just as fast as A-Train, but I'm immensely much stronger. Like, what can he not do? Can't get shot. You can't bomb him.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows if you can kill him or not. And it's getting to his head to the point where he's been walking around making threats. And the only time he's ever been intimidated by anybody was with Stan Edgar. Giancarlo Esposito, what a guy, because he's a menacing presence in everything he's in, from Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, he was in a Far Cry game, to this character here. And he had a phenomenal line in this last one. He said, I don't respect you. You're not a god. You're simply bad product. And I was like, my God, you're saying this to a man that could just reach into your chest and pull your heart out.
You know what? That's actually what I thought was going to happen. Like, I thought like he was walking out, I was like, you know what? Is Homelander just going to sneak behind him and just like put his like fist through his chest? But like, nope, he holds that much of a presence over Homelander, which is like so crazy just to think about. Like, it's almost like a regular guy having like a hold over Superman. Like, that's just not going to happen. I mean, Superman was like evil, right? Like, it's a really dope scene is to show what that power balance is between those two characters. But also, I wanted to touch on real quick, like, with what you said, that scene in season 2, I think it was the end scene where like he's on the top of that tower, just like completely losing it, jacking off, like he just completely lost as a character. That's why I hope from this season to sort of launch from, which we did get a little bit. Like, I believe the first time we see Homelander in this season is like he's having that blaring in his head, like just sort of still in that anger sort of mindset. Mm-hmm. And then we saw that even further perpetuated when the woman was on the top of the building about to commit suicide. And then you see that he's doing like the whole like lines, reading from a script, oh, get down, like, you gotta help. And then you see like Stormfront, killed herself in her hospital bed. And then seeing just that pure like evil, we're just like, you know what, jump. You have to do it now. Like, I just wasted all this time. Like, I was like, wow, like that is the most evil thing I think I've seen Homelander do. I'm like, I want to see more of this. And like, he's still evil, but when he got to the point where when he did that little speech on the stage where he's like I'm tired of this. This is all like scripted. This is all a hoax, and like getting those like positive points from the people is like, I think that's where that switch between the sort of impulsive Homelander switches to the more calculated Homelander that we see like, right now. And I mean, I guess that's how the writing is going to go. I think that's just how the character is going to go. And like you said, I think that's a very good theory that with the Soldier Boy being released in episode 4, is that he's going to be a good guy now, at least to the people's eyes, right? And I think that'll be a cool little twist. But going off of that as well, I want to talk about the boys, the actual team, and like how their story arc is going. So, start of the season, like their whole goal right now is just to find a weapon that will kill Homelander, right? To finally put an end to his whole thing. And I think despite, we spent enough time with the boys. I mean, do you want to talk about any of the characters specifically and how their sort of character arc started this season?
I feel like Butcher's the one that you have to talk about because we're seeing like a punished Butcher, so to speak. Like, he's at that point where he's willing to take temporary V and become a soup himself just to get what he wants, which is so interesting because that's, kind of how Homelander is. Yeah. Because they're supposed to be on like opposites, but no, there's so many similarities at this point in time. And it's adding to Butcher's complexity, but also complexity into the overall story. Because if you leave a mountain of corpses behind you to stop the evil that is Homelander, like, and you look back, how different were you at the end of the day? And I feel like that's kind of where it's alluding to. He's also being very selfish too. Like, he told Huey he wouldn't give him any V. And because he didn't, want to share any of the temporary V, one of his team members nearly dies. Right. Like nearly gets killed. And if Huey did not secretly take the V, it could have been a much worse situation. And I think I like where Butcher's going. Absolutely love what they're doing with this because it adds so much internal conflict with the boys. Like
Mhm.
it really does. And I think that's something that we needed because they've been kind of like, they had their issues that they've been very cohesive and coherent, even through some of the more BS parts. Like, I feel like Huey was always like the weak link because he was always having issues with Butcher.
Yeah.
But now we're at that point where you saw him like as the girl was in the backseat dying, he's just looking at his
Yes.
arm like
Mhm.
I have power now. And he brought up how he used to be bullied. He's on that power trip. Like he
Yeah.
got a taste and he's not going to want to say no.
Mhm.
I'm excited for where it goes. I think they're going to end up with permanent powers.
Think so?
Yeah, I think they do in the comics. I've never read the comics,
Mhm.
but going on Reddit and see what people were saying about this episode, somebody brought that up in the comic books that they do. So I think that's where it's going. Hopefully they're not going to be so predictable and just follow the comics. Like I feel like, doing their own thing a bit has really worked for them.
Mhm.
But I feel like that's the logical conclusion from here because there's no way Huey's ever going to want to be regular person Huey who gets his girlfriend murdered in front of him by A-Train,
Oh my
who
god.
gets bullied by Butcher, who has to have his girlfriend protect him,
Mhm.
and he wants to be the protector. Like he said it explicitly in this episode. He's not going to be able to get off of it. And also back to Butcher, Butcher's not going to be able to either.
Right. And then you can sort of see regret and or maybe not regret, it's probably more like guilt in Butcher's face. Because he's so shameful when he takes it. Like he's like, I don't want to do this, but I love the feeling. Like you see
Mhm.
that first when he's like sort of testing it out. And then he gets to I forgot what the guy's name was, but he sort of just like remember the scene where like he lasers through like this car and then the guy who was interrogating. So like sort of just he's less on a power trip than I feel like Huey is. Like you can see Huey, like he's just like laying in the car, he's just like smiling, looking at his arm glowing, and
Mhm.
just like I love that scene so much. But I want to go back to sort of where the season started and like Huey's working for the sort of like FBI bureau with like superhero
Mhm.
people. And I think that's pretty interesting in that, it sort of it grounds the show a little bit. Like we get to see more of like the political aspect of like Soups. I really
Mhm.
like that aspect of the show, especially his relationship with let me pull up her name.
Oh, you're talking about the AOC stand-in?
Yeah. Like their relationship is pretty cool.
Oh, Victoria Newman.
Yes, there we go. But other than Huey and Butcher, like I feel like Frenchie, Kimiko, and Mother's Milk are sort of, I don't know if you feel the same way, but sort of on the back burner in terms of like interest. I'm just
Mhm.
not really interested in those three characters very much at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
Uh,
Mother's Milk. Like Mother's Milk, like his whole story right now is just like his father had some history with Soldier Boy, and like he's kind of like jaded from that, and it's just like they're not selling it right now at least. So hopefully, maybe in episode 5 we see more of that character from Mother's Milk. But yeah, those characters are just kind of not the best for me.
I think those characters are still having character development. Like we're seeing, Kamiko is done with the notion of having power. She's done just being like the gun for the boys because
Mhm.
she's, the one with superpowers. Um, but I think it was a smart move to kind of put them on the back burner. They still have the character development. They are on the back burner for now because I think there's more important things to the story happening than, just how they're feeling.
Yeah.
Like, Homelander being the center and the whole purpose of them getting the guns to kill Homelander means that, Butcher and Huey out of the boys have the most tie into the story. So they're going to get the brunt of character development. And the boys is a lot of characters. You
Right.
cannot give everybody the limelight at all points in time in the show. You have to give, an episode here and there for, like they did with the Deep. Like the Deep had
Mhm.
his own little side quest going on last
Yeah.
season, and it worked because the Deep's back and he's still God, he's awful. He's just gross. The Deep grosses me out.
Yeah. Um, Sort of talking about that. I'm gonna be honest. Like when I first started this season, I really liked the first episode in that I've sort of had this sort of I gave it the Mortal Kombat test. It's something that I kind of turned in my head, but like, will the gore and will like the story still hold up after seeing 2 seasons of this and getting a new season? And thankfully, like it still held up. Like that first scene of the guy, and it's a W time here when he hopped into the guy's, penis head and then
Oh my
he like
God.
he sneezed and then blew the guy. I was like, these guys still have a creative bone in their body
Mhm.
when it comes to gore. And then as the show sort of went on, it like for some reason I wasn't feeling it as much as I was with the first two seasons. And I think that's because like I'm not a huge fan of like the whole like corporate background. Oh, like you have to get your approval points up. Like that whole aspect of the boys is sort of wore down on me,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to yeah. So especially when it comes to the deep, right? I feel like his like you said side quest like I just don't I just didn't really care for that much at all. And it's like yeah.
I think last season, with the whole cult, I was a little disinterested. It was the parts where you just kind of like turn it off, not turn it off, but you turn your head off for a little bit and
Right.
let it
Yeah,
pass.
get your phone out for a second while that scene is
Hmm.
playing and then just do whatever when it comes
and
back
then,
on.
and then
Yeah,
you finish the rest of the episode. Yeah.
exactly.
But I'm still a fan of the corporate angle. Just, I
Mhm.
think that was the biggest tie in for me to this show
Yeah.
because, you have like movies and IPs like Kick Ass where they try and do a realistic angle on what if superheroes existed. And I feel like the boys, in a way, it's the most accurate
For
because I feel
sure.
like there's
For sure.
no way like these superheroes wouldn't be tied to a corporation. And since it's depicting like some of the really excesses of like corporate capitalism, they're so obsessed with markets and approval rating. Like I forget the AIDS name, but A Train wants to talk about going to stop like the over policing of the black
Oh
community
yeah.
by one of the superheroes, and she's just like, oh yeah, cool. And he's like, no,
Mhm.
I want to do it for real. And she's like, I just want to let you know, like I changed all my Instagram photos to black and my favorite
that,
hashtag is
that was
Black
yeah.
Lives Matter. Like I feel like it is such a great satire of
Mhm.
the corporate landscape we see now, while keeping like, yeah, if superheroes were in this landscape, they would be exactly like this. So I'm not tired of it yet,
Mhm.
but I think they will tone it down because there's
Yeah.
more important things than just Homelander cares about his approval rating or the Deep caring about their approval rating. There's a lot of turmoil between the characters happening right now, like
Mhm.
all across. Like even I think one that's not touched on as much is Starlight and Huey's relationship is changing, and it's really subtle. Like it's not just Huey taking the V and kind of wanting to be the protector. I think we're kind of seeing Starlight become invested in the idea of the Seven and being a superhero again. Like there was the
Hmm.
flashback to her as a kid, and I wonder how that's going to play out. Like, are they going to ultimately defeat Homelander for her to be the new big bad?
Yeah.
And I get that feeling because the way the show depicts superheroes is, power corrupts,
Mhm.
and I think we're hitting that point, or may hit that point for her soon. Especially when she's going to be betrayed by Huey taking the V. Like
Right.
I feel that coming. I really do. There's no way that's going to go untalked about by her character. And
Mhm.
I feel like that's going to be the first time like she's going to be challenged in a way. Like maybe she only really had the affections for Huey to such an extent is because she was more powerful. Like
Right.
maybe that plays a role. And she's also, Starlight has been moving a lot of pieces this season. Like she is very integral to the plot. Like she's working with Maeve, was trying to coordinate the dissent within the Seven against Homelander.
Mhm.
She's the one on the front lines. So I'm really excited with what they do with Huey and Starlight. I think that's probably one of the most important parts of this season, actually.
Yeah. And like going off of I want to come back to the whole like ratings thing again. It's like um when Starlight got that sort of power, not I wouldn't say power trip, but the whole director saying that you can be ahead of the seven, you can be co-head of the seven. Like you did see the excitement in her face from that scene. It's like that's I like that, but I'm still not super sold. Well, I was sold on the aspect of the whole power rating or the audience rating and stuff, but it's just kind of getting old. And I wanted to bring up I think The Boys' biggest contender, which you probably think is like Marvel or something like that, but I think it's actually Invincible, which I don't know if you've seen that show. Have you seen
Mm-mm.
Invincible?
No, I've heard I've heard
Woo!
really good things about it though.
You need to watch Invincible because it's based. See, you know what? I'm not even going to spoil it, but I'll just say this: if there's any show that's or any media that's close to The Boys in sort of like comparing the two, it'll be invincible. That's all I will say. That's all I say because I want you to go into it blind. So, but yeah, other than that, I think the character progression with Huey especially is going to be so cool to watch, and especially with how Compound V is coming into the plot. I really want to see how that's going to transform, the boys obviously, and how their sort of relationship is going to either come together or most likely like split apart. Because you saw how Mother's Milk was like, you know what, man, like I see your true colors. Like this is not. I'm out. That's basically what he said in season episode 4. It's like not only how it's going to affect the boys, but how eventually Compound V I feel is going to get on the streets or something, and like it's going to the whole world of the boys I feel like is going to turn upside down in like maybe a few episodes, maybe a season, who knows. But if there's any plot point I'm excited for, it's definitely Compound V.
Yeah, do you wonder what's happening to Newman's daughter after she gave it to her? Like that entire scene, I was like, she's gonna have one of those awful superpowers where she's gonna like be just a rock person and she's gonna resent her mom, because it looked like she was getting like, some Deadpool looking skin deformations after she took it. And I was like, ooh,
and then like the sound design on that scene was crazy because I was hearing that like the crackles of her like bones and stuff. I was like, oh my God, like she's gonna turn into hopefully nothing bad, because I feel terrible if that little girl gets turned into something like monstrous. But
actually, on the Compound V note, I have this gripe with how they're portraying it with Butcher. So Butcher's out there telling Huey like, oh no, this is a curse. I hate when shows and movies do that. Like Morbius, I'll loop that in. They kind of did the same thing. Morbius doesn't want to heal his best friend with vampirism because it's a curse. That's so stupid. I've always thought in every IP that is so dumb.
Well, to be fair, vampirism, like that's literally, if I got turned a vampire to save my life, I mean, sure, it'd be cool, but like the side effects of being a vampire, it's kind of trash. But like, I totally get what you mean, especially like when it's a superpower. Is like, bro, you're telling me a superpower is a curse? Like,
no way. Like it comes off so like selfish and jaded. Like, oh, I just have super strength and can fly now. It's a curse. Be like, really? Flying and super strength?
That's a curse, bro. Yeah, that's kind of what Kimiko was on when she said, I believe she said like, why did you do this to yourself? Like, why are you giving yourself superpowers? I'm like, I mean, one, like this is sort of our job now. We have to do what we need to do to quell these soups. So like for her to be like, why are you doing this? I'm like, come on. Like
to win, right? To not get yeeted in the process, to actually stand a chance against Homelander. I just really just like it. And on the vampire notes of how they use it, watching Morbius, the dude could move at the speed of light, no longer going to die ever, immortality. He's Jared Leto, so he's still really good looking. Like, how is any of that a curse at all? The only downside.
Did you see the movie?
Yes, okay. I did.
Just side note, how'd you like it? Or how did you not like it? Let me hear it.
If it would have came out in 2005, it would have been the best Sony project ever made. It's so out of date. Like it really is. And I think there's so many things that's funny about how they marketed that film. Like that Jared Leto, talking about preparing for the role, which is honestly just hilarious considering that it's very much a B movie. If you just internalize this is a B movie going in to see it, you'll actually have a good time. Like I did enjoy myself because it's so ridiculous. And the dancing scene with the guy from Doctor Who that everybody like crapped on, I was laughing at it. I had fun. I thought that was hilarious because all I could think about was the Tobey Maguire dance scene from Spider-Man 3. And that's when I realized this is on that Spider-Man 3 level of cheese. So if people eventually grow to love Spider-Man 3 like they have, everybody's going to grow to love Morbius after a while because there's not too many things incredibly wrong with it, with the exception of, this is what I thought was ridiculous. Within the first 5-10 minutes of the film, they're in a lab prepping, like trying to make a cure. And then for whatever reason, like it happened so quick, maybe I missed the dialogue or there was just an extreme jump cut. They're on a ship with mercenaries where he's doing the experiment. And the only reason they're on this ship doing this experiment is so he can kill mercenaries. And it plays a point in the plot like, oh, wow, you committed murder, but they were mercenaries, so we're going to let it slide. And that was like the only reason. It was so abrupt and odd. But after, the first 10 minutes, you kind of have fun with it. Like I didn't think it was as bad as people made it out to be, because it just was bad. Accept it and enjoy how bad it is.
Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to add in there, like, there's nothing wrong with because sometimes a movie is bad, so bad that it's fun. And like, how many movies nowadays can you say, like, in a movie world that we're in with like MCUs, DCUs, just universes that are being expanded? Like, I think we kind of deserve a nice little fun in between movie that we can kind of meme on and just like, turn our brains off and just have a smile at, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I still need to see it for myself. Hopefully, it comes on a streaming service at some point. But it sounds, from your description, it sounds like a fun time for sure.
There's this hilarious misuse of CGI, or I guess you'd say no use of CGI in that film, that you're going to particularly laugh at every time, because he's a vampire. There's got to be a lot of blood, but there isn't. And there's a scene with, like, when he's killing the mercenaries, he scratches one across the throat, and you hear a blood splat, and you hear like the guy gargling blood, and he grabs his throat, but you can tell the entire time there is no cut. There's no blood anywhere, but you can hear it as clear as day. And you're like, what the hell's going on? And there's so many scenes like that in the movie, because I guess they realize, you know what, the only way we're going to get our money back is if we go PG-13. Don't add in the post-production effects, just leave the blood out.
Right, man. Sounds like a fun time. But speaking of maybe a not so fun time, we got to get into easily the trial of, the past several years. We got to get into Depp v. Heard. Tell us more about that, Caleb.
So there was the most recent one was the one that took place here in the United States. I believe it was in Virginia, if I recall correctly. It may have been in Florida, because I think Johnny Depp got a residence in Florida, so he didn't have to pay money to other lawsuits that he has lost in the process, because Florida has a law in place to, fun fact, if you don't want to pay money for court cases, just move to Florida. I think it's part of Stand Your Ground. Digressing. This was the second trial, the one that took place in the US. The previous one was in the UK. In the UK, Depp did not fare so well. I think it was Depp versus The Sun. And this one was Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard explicitly, because they were both suing each other. And I think the biggest takeaway from this is what has happened on social media. Like, for me, I don't even, want to get into the he said, she said kind of stuff, or the philosophical type discussions that people are trying to have about it. I want to talk about the fact that people are talking about it and how much they talked about it. I want to talk about how Johnny Depp owned TikTok practically for a solid month. Like, the sway you can have within popular culture is immense.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine if Kim Kardashian sued somebody like this. Like, imagine that army, or BTS got into a lawsuit. Imagine the BTS army, up in arms. Like, that's what we really saw with Johnny Depp. And it reached all levels of society. I felt like my mom was talking about the case, and my mom watches like CSI, and that's pretty much it. It hit everywhere.
Well, I'm curious. Sorry to cut you off, but like, what's your mom's point of view on the case? I'm curious.
My mom believes that Johnny Depp is an angel who can do no wrong. That Amber Heard is a terrible person, and even if Johnny did do something, Amber Heard deserved it, kind of outlook.
Right. And like, going to what you said about the social reception of this case, is like, I've never seen a trial where, excuse my language, but I would say that Johnny Depp has groupies at this point, in terms of like court groupies, where like they're so invested in this case and so like rooting for this guy. It's like, it's very like, I wonder what it was like when Amber Heard initially put out that op-ed, and what the perception was like on her side versus Depp, and how it sort of swayed towards more believing Depp and not liking Amber Heard. Do you remember what that was like?
It definitely was a pendulum, because whenever she wrote that op-ed, which I think is why Johnny Depp ultimately moved forward with lawsuits, is it was immensely negative towards him. Like, I remember reading the gossip about it, and everybody's like, oh, this, op-ed came out, Johnny Depp's an abuser. Like, he beats up on women, he beat up Amber Heard. Like, everybody just immediately not everybody, but a lot of people immediately took it in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when you saw the infancy of the I support Johnny Depp thing, because there was always going to be those people that, you know, they love Pirates of the Caribbean. They love Edward Scissorhands. They just love everything Johnny Depp. They grew up with this guy in their home. You know, whenever you watch a movie, a TV show, listen to a podcast in your place, it's like the same as inviting those people into your home so they have a place in your lives. And most people, I would say, were on Amber Heard's side initially because she was the only one that brought forth anything or said anything. She was the first one to speak.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting. What we learned from this most recent trial is she was very proactive in getting her word out there. Like, she was the one that contacted TMZ to leak a video. I think she contacted TMZ twice over this entire saga, if I'm not mistaken. But it's definitely switched now. I would say if you go on TikTok, if you go on Reddit, you're going to see most people are supporting Johnny Depp. Most of the people I know in person have sounded like they've been supportive of Johnny Depp, and they've been very adamant. I think it has kind of like a crossover with the men's rights crowd.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely so, because people that I've seen that would always share that type of stuff immediately cling to Johnny Depp. Because for them, this was the case. Like, this case really does have like a lot of greater implications outside of these two individuals because of how much attention it got. Like, that cannot be overlooked. And not just like people, like, look at the media, mainstream media narrative about it. Like, there's still articles coming out of every major publication assessing this case. And I think the media has actually been more so still in line with Amber Heard.
Really?
Which, yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting. Like, if you just Google Amber Heard, Johnny Depp trial, I feel like most of the mainstream publications have the viewpoint that Johnny Depp isn't as angelic as everybody else wants to believe. Or some of them, like, I've seen actual journalists say that I think the entire thing was Depp's fault. Do whole Twitter threads, like actual journalists, you know, so that's like, that's their viewpoint. So I think there's a conflict in those viewpoints. There's the Me Too crowd that, you know, I think is kind of hurt by this. Like, I feel like this was a big blow to the concept of the Me Too.
And because
like, it really was.
Because like, I remember when, like, the day the final decision was being made and she inevitably lost, like, she put out, I forgot the exact wording, but she's saying that there's like a huge loss for like women's rights, and like this is like a huge setback for women. I'm like, no, this, like, I mean, I definitely is, because you caused this, like, you started this. And it's like, I really wish she didn't put like the entirety of women's names in her mouth. I said, this is a huge case for the betterment of women. It's like, no, like, you did bad. You caused harm for this whole case. It's like, I just feel really bad for women now that, you know, have to see this case, and that when they want to come out, they have to be ridiculed with this case, saying like, oh, are you lying, or this and that. I'm like, that's what you did, Amber Heard. Like,
I think it's so wild too for her to kind of say that, because didn't she abuse her girlfriends well before her and Johnny Depp started dating? I think she had to get a restraining order. She was arrested for beating up on her girlfriend.
I did not know that.
Before this took place. So I think writing an op-ed, you know, declaring yourself as a victim of domestic violence when you've been arrested for domestic violence before this relationship brought the spotlight in. Like, it was never going to work out for her.
Right.
Like, it never was. And I think that's why Johnny Depp and his team felt so bold about not just doing one, but multiple lawsuits, is because they had a leg to stand on to some degree. Like, if you're going to try and assassinate my character, like, I can pull receipts too. I got to say, there was, in my view, I think there was a power imbalance between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and that's why we're kind of seeing the sway towards Johnny Depp's side. It's not just that he won the trial, but Johnny Depp is one of the most popular actors of all time. With that comes a considerable amount of power. Like, I don't even think he would have necessarily needed to do these lawsuits. He probably could have just called a press conference and just said what he needed to say, and he could have had an army right behind him immediately, like that. Like
Right.
he is such a beloved guy, and I don't think with her past, it was ever going to have her ultimately painted as just victim. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't going to happen.
Right. And like I remember when this was all getting started, I was pretty furious in seeing that Depp was losing these roles because of what the op-ed said, and she was, and even when it progressed and saying that she probably was lying, she was still working on Aquaman. I was like, wow, this is like such a sign of the times. Like it just looks bad for her. And I
Mhm.
also update. It seems like Johnny Depp doesn't even want the money from her. I think the quote here says, let me see. But what's the all slow? But I mean, it was basically saying that he doesn't really want that settlement money. And it was
Mhm.
more about the message of saying that you cannot lie about this. It's just a statement rather than just money thing. And that is very commendable for Johnny Depp in saying like this isn't. He doesn't hate Amber Heard. Well, I hope he doesn't hate Amber Heard. But I also wanted to point out that the mental health aspect of this, right? Like even though what Amber Heard did was pretty bad in my opinion, I think I still want to remain consistent in respecting people's mental health. Like, could you imagine like thousands of people like calling you Amber Turd and like going on TikTok and like sort of
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like yeah, they're going a little
toxic.
bit too far, and it's like
Mhm.
let them deal with that. I get that she comes off as not the best person, but I will never. I just don't know how I want to say this, but I know that if I was in that situation, I would have my mental health respected, and
Mhm.
but you know,
I think it's so like I'm glad you brought that up, but I do think that is like the worst part of like this case is you could really see how people can be malicious and
mm,
vicious
right,
about two people that they're ultimately never going to meet, break bread with, or spend any amount of meaningful time with ever.
hmm,
And they're out here saying things that your family and friends are going to see. And
right,
with this case having so much notoriety, people were identifying. Like I think that's something to point out. People identified with one or the other party. Like men that consider themselves, victims of violence of some type, domestic violence of some type, were really a lot of them were really sucked into identifying with Johnny Depp because they saw themselves there.
right,
So when people were bashing on Johnny Depp out the gate, like I'm sure that would make them feel not so good. It's almost that criticism is a criticism of them as well.
hmm,
And Amber Heard, I think, still does have like a lot of women that are going to stick by her side no matter what because they identified with her vision of or version of what has happened.
right,
And I feel like that reaction is good. Like people could lose friends over that. Like you don't realize you think you may just be insulting Amber Heard or Johnny Depp, but you can almost incidentally be insulting your friends
right.
and the bigger environment because like I said, Depp has so many fans all across the world. I feel like it is a hostile environment for that woman now. Like,
Yeah.
how's she going to be able to go out and eat without some hyper malicious fan wanting to let her know how much of a terrible person she is? God forbid we get like some Dave Chappelle style assault on her.
Oh
Like, I'd
man.
hope not.
Right.
But we're at that point in time. Like people see things on TV and they're like, you know what? I know these people well enough to charge them in a comedy show or yell at them in a restaurant or verbally berate them. And it's just an immensely toxic environment.
You know what? I feel like we're also in the day and age where like people's attention spans are like that quick. So like, who knows in a year? Like, I mean, they probably. I feel like we'll never forget this case. But at the same time, I definitely feel that malicious nature towards Amber Heard will definitely go down. I definitely do. If I'm putting my own personal thing in here, like, I definitely don't want her career destroyed. I don't want to say that, but she does need to feel that sort of punishment, in my opinion. Like, I don't know if she still has her role in Aquaman 2. I've heard it was reduced down to like something like 10 minutes.
I
But
heard
like,
they cut her out of it,
really?
actually.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to
Yeah.
remove her from the film.
But it's so tricky because I, even though the case proves that, she, is acting in ill intent towards Depp, like, I still feel like they both have their own truths. Like
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't want to discredit her feelings because who knows? Like I feel like she probably did feel that she was in a domestic violence situation, even though like the evidence doesn't swing in her favor. And it's like, that's why I'm talking about mental health, is that even though you can be malicious, like, look at it from a point of empathy and just give her the benefit of the doubt, just a little bit. All I'm asking is just a little bit of empathy towards Amber Heard and what you say online and all other stuff. I do want to ask you though, do you think that Johnny Depp, because there was talks about the whole Pirates of the Caribbean thing and like any of his other projects, like he was cut out of what's that, Fantastic Beasts?
Fantastic
right?
Beasts, yeah.
So do you think, when it comes to a case like this, in terms of popular opinion, like how do you see each person sort of getting like rewarded and getting punished? Do you see Johnny Depp getting his roles back, more people wanting to work with Johnny Depp, and less people wanting to work with Amber Heard and her getting less roles? How do you see this sort of backlash working with both people?
I think that's a really good question, because at the end of the day, they aired out all of their dirty laundry on national television. Like, I remember whenever I was watching the results of the trial, there was like 10 million people live streaming it with me, like Super Bowl numbers. That's going to go with them everywhere. Like, every producer that they talk to is going to have formed an opinion if they've seen that stuff. So I really do not know. It looks like in the immediate aftermath, like, he does have some things going for him. Like, he released an album. I think he's touring. I think he's been offered a film role. Don't quote me on that, but it does seem like he is going to be back into the swing of things a little bit, especially if Amber Heard is being written out of or edited out of Aquaman. That's the same studio. It's Warner Brothers that does Fantastic Beasts, and they're the ones that cut him out of Fantastic Beasts 3. He can't ever get back the roles that he lost, but maybe this is a point of career resurgence. Like, he will be given a second look instead of just being reduced to the initial viewpoint of, you're just a wife beater.
Right.
And real quick, I do want to go back. I think what you said about the empathy in this and taking into account Amber Heard's perspective, I think that really is perfect, because we heard a bunch of people's viewpoints, like they came in and testify, like the assistants, the aides, the drivers, the psychologists. And, sometimes people in relationships can bring out the worst in each other. They really can. They can be a trigger for each other, and they could be good people outside of that relationship. So the best thing for them is that relationship to end. And I think that's an unfortunate circumstance. You don't like to see people in relationships that tear them down or that are as toxic as theirs really was. So I think them being, separated and removed from each other is a good thing. And I think people do need to take on your viewpoint that you still got to see them as, human beings that's worthy of the same treatment that anybody else is worthy of, like respect, dignity, especially when they did something that I don't think many people would want to do. Do you think many people want to go and air out your divorce and other things on national television?
And the biggest differing factor is that this was so like you said, there was millions of people watching the last verdict. And I kind of want to bring up the question, does it also give you a sort of eerie feeling how much of this trial that was in hindsight just really serious, being used for entertainment and laughs and memes? Does that not make you kind of eeried out a little bit too? I feel like it's so eerie. It's so it almost feels just really I get that for men in particular, this kind of is a feel-good case for them, but at the same time it's really weird putting so much entertainment value into this, seeing edits of court days. It's weird.
That's why I brought up that so to speak, it kind of did bring out some of the crazies, like that whole men's rights crowd, that are essentially just rebranded misogynists. Of course they were attracted to this. Right. This was their shining moment. It's not because they necessarily wanted to prove that men can be victims too, or there can be, two perpetuators and two victims. And they weren't ever trying to uphold that thesis. They were really just out there to be malicious, tear women down. And I think that's unfortunate for people that aren't like that can voice an opinion that would maybe be pro Depp, because then you could incidentally be lumped into those guys.
Right.
In the same way that, like I brought up earlier, like this was a big hit to Me Too, like really was. And I don't think it's gonna be a good thing, because those same people that have those malicious memes that think that this is just pure entertainment, you
Right.
know, I think there's going to be a negative pushback. Like somebody's going to like call out somebody like a Harvey Weinstein,
Mhm.
and they are not going to get as much credibility, even if they brought a burden of proof with them, because the narrative will potentially be hijacked immediately by those people. They're going to bring up Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard as a way to discredit future women survivors. I think maybe a counterpoint to that is maybe it can help the Me Too movement by making it more inclusive. Because I think at the onset, Me Too was more about women coming forward as survivors of sexual violence. And not that men were unwelcome in voicing that. I still feel like there was that, very patriarchal viewpoint that only women can be victims that was kind of lumped into it.
Mhm.
And I say that's a patriarchal viewpoint because, the patriarchy, men are supposed to be men. They're supposed to be, perfect, never cry, never feel pain, brush everything off.
Right.
And even though like it was a feminist thing, I don't think it directly challenged that, how patriarchy can victimize males too. So maybe we see something positive like that. I am digressing because I'm thinking again about, my God, the people and their memes. 9/11 happened today. People would be making fun of it the next day.
Right. For
Like it
sure.
really would. People can be so vicious.
Mhm.
Like they really can. And social media has given everybody a voice. And some social media websites like Twitter and Reddit have given you anonymity with
Right.
that voice. Like you can voice whatever horrible opinion behind a Patrick Bateman profile pic. You know what I mean? Your profile
Right.
pic can be a landscape. Nobody can know who you are. You can have some character name.
Mhm.
And when you have hundreds of millions of people that are regular social media users that spend hours of their day on social media, you can have a great big voice when a bunch of people are doing it at once. And going through TikTok, it was all Amber Turd, all some of the most awful things, even if your algorithm wasn't there yet, because there was just so much content
Right. Exactly.
doing that.
Mhm. Um, I'm trying to think if I want to bring up this last point. Uh, my thing is, so we talked a little bit about this being bad for Me Too. I think we also have to realize that the op-ed article came out sort of at the rise of the Me Too hashtag and the Believe All Women hashtag. And I'm trying to think if is doing more, this case does more good or more bad. So in one instance, she's sort of uh, muddied the waters in terms of, especially misogynistic men being like, are women telling the truth? But also, I do think this is in a way good in the sense that I really want to see women speak out. I want to see men speak. I want to see any victim speak out. But I also want you to come with your P's and Q's with evidence and really being solidified. And I know it's hard to piece together evidence, especially when you're in the moment, like piece together evidence to prove that you're being a victim of this. But it takes bravery, it takes courage and all that. But I think what that showed is that, you really need to come correct with this kind of thing. Because at the end of the day, you don't want this, depending on what kind of person you are, to be malicious towards that person that you're trying to accuse. You want to get your justice and you want that person to not hurt anybody else. So all I'm saying is that I think coming together with more evidence to solidify your accusations is, I think, great for the Me Too movement and for, Believe All Women. I don't even think, I haven't seen a Believe All Women hashtag in forever, but that's besides the point.
For me, on that point, I feel like when you said it's going to be hard, I feel like in some instances it can be impossible. Because particularly if we're talking about sexual violence,
Right.
people don't typically come forward with that
Exactly.
quickly. Like oftentimes they don't even do like the things you need to safeguard your health in the immediate aftermath. Like if they're a victim of sexual violence, you're supposed to go to like the hospital to make sure you didn't contract an STD. And if you did, you get treated, do the rape kit so they can get the DNA evidence. And that's a lot of stuff for a person to have to do in the immediate aftermath of trauma.
It takes courage. Like I couldn't even imagine, like literally, like after something like that happening, you have to literally build up being like, this happened to me, and now I have to, sort of take that walk of shame in a way. And it's like, it's definitely hard. And like I wasn't talking more towards sexual violence because that is such an emotional like wreck towards you, but like, I mean, hopefully in sort of like another Amber Heard and Johnny Depp situation, if you're in that sort of thing, like, I mean, it also takes that mindset to be like, okay, like this is a time where I know this is going to happen. Like I need to take evidence, but like I said, it takes that mental like readiness to do that type of stuff,
I really do wonder, like, since you're bringing up like if people are going to demand like receipts, burdens of proof in the future. But at the same time, I feel like the Me Too movement kind of like waned on its own even before this. Like there wasn't as many people coming out and like using the hashtag, because I feel like it was a whole thing for like a summer. I think that's when it started. And it was so sad because there were so many celebrity women that came forward in such a short period of time. Like, and a lot of them were really big names that, you just feel horrible to hear that happen to people. And, Harvey Weinstein was actually a common perpetuator of that violence for a lot of those people that came forward.
Right. And that's a good thing. Is like for that hashtag, it did its job, right? It got Bill Cosby out, it got Harvey Weinstein out. It's like, and even probably in people I'm missing from that list, but it's like it did its justice, and that's awesome, right? So that's the thing. Like now it's just like, even though you don't see it a lot like you did that with something like you said, it's like that movement is still going, even though it's not, using the hashtag, whatever. That's that calling out, that call out culture is still going out, which is like we said, it can be good, but also you can sort of see that how it can be sort of misused and sometimes.
Actually, I think I have a perfect tie-in for this if we're talking about the Me Too movement. Are you familiar with the case against Deshaun Watson, the franchise quarterback of the Cleveland Browns?
I am not.
So I think this can actually show how even before this all took place, like the Me Too movement had already like taken a hit where people weren't, I guess not enough people bought into the whole believe women thing, because Deshaun Watson, while he was the quarterback of the Houston Texans, he demanded a trade. And then just a few weeks after, 23 women came forward that said, we are massage therapists and Deshaun Watson booked us for our services, and he sexually assaulted us, sexually harassed us, or did lewd acts. And there's even more women coming forward. Like I think just last week, another one came forward. And it's honestly like not a good situation, because anybody that is thinking about this, no way does 23 women all come forward and there's not some level of truth to what they're saying. Like once you start thinking that these women, like I saw how people were talking about it online, we're talking about that toxic online environment. People were making excuses like, oh, they're all coordinated. It's like, okay, so what you're alleging there is conspiracy.
Right.
That these women from all across the country got together, conspired over tea. Like, no, that's not how life works. And of course, like that would get uncovered, through discovery, if anything like that was happening. But the New York Times just released that Deshaun Watson sought the massage services outside of the team with 66 women. Like the teams have their own massage therapists. Like you're a football player, you're going to be sore, your muscles are going to hurt, you're going to need massages. Like I feel like it's a have to for that occupation with how high stress it is on the body. But he was doing his own thing. Like he was booking these women through Instagram, through Twitter, however he could get a hold of them. And they all had similar narratives like, oh, I said yes because he's a famous person. Like I felt like it was going to help me with my online marketing to say that I provided services to this player. And the way it has gone is he got traded to the Cleveland Browns. So what he ultimately wanted, he got the trade. And then the Cleveland Browns offered him the biggest contract in NFL history. So this man that is still facing these allegations, and this is not resolved, is now going to be the highest paid player ever. He is not facing a suspension because the NFL is still investigating on their own. And the women have even said the NFL has actually not contacted them. Neither did the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns had their own investigation, which was a joke. The press conference they had when they introduced him as a player was brutal. You should check out the YouTube video for it because the Cleveland journalists went in. They asked the hardest questions, the right questions. They were asking, did you consult any woman before you made that trade? Like, did you talk to your daughters and wives to see how they felt? And one of them actually had the gall to say, yeah, I asked my daughters and they said it was good. And people online pointed out like that level of hypocrisy. Yes, your daughters that have a vested interest in you paying for their rich lifestyle with GM money. Of course, they're going to tell you, yeah, dad, do whatever you think is going to make us richer. And they asked Deshaun like a lot of questions that put him in the hot seat immediately. Because when you introduce a new player, they have to answer questions. And it was brutal. And it had to be because the thing is, it does not look like he's going to face any repercussions whatsoever. And online, people like Cleveland Brown fans are going to warm up to him because he's their QB. He's a young quarterback. He's 26, 27 years old, could potentially play for, 14 more years because he is a superstar, megastar caliber QB. He was an exceptional player, is an exceptional player. But that's where the Me Too movement is at. Like 25 women could all say, yeah, like sexual harassment, sexual assault. Mm-hmm. And no, it wasn't enough. Like
on top of that too is like, I remember recently, I forgot all the details about it, but I'm pretty sure you probably saw it too. But Elon Musk got outed saying that I think he was having some type of also massage service or something on like one of like his airplanes or something. And the masseuse was about to do her job, whatever, and he exposed himself to her. Or no, and I think it was a well, it was like a woman that was working for his company, but he paid her like $250,000 to stay silent. And then she eventually just came out like randomly, and it just blew up on Twitter for like maybe a week. And after that, it just really it's just so eerie. Like it just died down out of nowhere. It's like what? How did a story like this die down? Like, are we just not going to talk about this ever again? Like, have you seen this story?
I heard about it. I did not know about the $250,000. But when you're paying hush money, there's a reason you don't want somebody to speak up. Mm-hmm. And then Elon Musk is a rich guy. He has that kind of money. So
right. And I remember the day it came out, like he was just tweeting like normal day, like, oh well, it's like it's kind of gross how this culture is sort of, I wouldn't say it's a culture, but how these acts are sort of portrayed on social media and like how just lightly we take it sometimes. So, I mean, as a society, things definitely need to change. So stuff like this just doesn't happen as frequent and as nonchalant as it's happening right now.
Actually, I do want to tie it back to the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial because I feel like a lot of people felt vindicated that somebody, like in their mind, was falsely accused and then proven wrong. Like they felt like that there was more of a problem of false allegations than there are perpetuators that are getting off the hook. Mm. And I think they're just completely wrong. I think there are far more perpetuators getting off the hook. Like, to use a very high profile example, the Epstein case practically died. Like literally in the case of Epstein, he did die. Like he was suspiciously found dead in his cell. And he had lists of, names of people that visited his island, which was known for sexual abuse, like human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And none of those people are going to be like questioned at all because Epstein, like he was I think either a multi-millionaire or a billionaire, in fact. And a lot of those people have money, and with money comes power. Like if you have money, you can buy the services of marketing firms to get your PR out there before the bad press. In the cases of billionaires, you can buy whole newspapers and just shut down the stories that you do not like. So I think that power imbalance is going to allow people like Musk to go without any sort of not just accountability but questioning. Like, could you imagine being that detective that's being told, hey, you got to head up to the Musk residence to go conduct an interview to see what you can do about this case? That's not going to happen. Like,
Right.
chief of police probably goes to his barbecue.
It's untouchable. Yeah, it's scary, man. But if there's nothing else you want to touch on there, we have a segment to end off the podcast, what we're looking forward to coming in the future. For me, specifically, between how far do you want to take it out? How far in terms of like projects, like the next year, next couple months?
You want to do through the end of June?
Yeah, let's do that.
Maybe touch on a little bit in July if there's anything that you saw in July that really sticks out.
Right.
I will say this upcoming month, the film that I am actually like pretty nuts to see is an Ethan Hawke film. It's the horror film, The Black Phone.
The Black Phone.
I'm not sure if you've seen a trailer for it. The plot summary is after being abducted by a child killer and locked in a soundproof basement, a 13-year-old boy starts receiving calls on a disconnected phone from the killer's previous victims. And Ethan Hawke plays the killer, and from the trailer, what I've seen, he looks menacing, intimidating. And this is one of the highest reviewed horror films I have seen in a hot minute. As of right now, it has an 80 on an 80 Metascore.
It's already out?
No, it comes out on June 24th alongside the new Elvis movie.
Okay. Are you also looking forward to for the Elvis movie?
Yeah, actually, like I'm not a big Elvis music guy. Like I'm sure everybody that grew up in the United States has heard his songs because he was so big in pop culture. Like he was the king.
Right.
I'm really interested. Like I'm a big fan of biopics. Baz Luhrmann is directing, so it's going to be colorful. The lighting is going to be insane.
Dude,
it's
yeah,
going to
the
be
trailers
extravagant.
look beautiful. Like I'm like seeing those trailers. Like besides me being interested in like seeing the story behind Elvis, which I barely know anything about. Like I love just seeing how the electricity from the fans is portrayed in like an artistic way. Like the like it looks like a beautiful film. I can't wait to. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to see that right when it comes out, but maybe watch it when it's a streaming service. But
yeah, for me, I think it's like one of those $5 Tuesday movies.
Right, exactly.
Like it is a 3-hour film.
Is it really?
It's 159 minutes. Oh yeah, I'm sure they're going to have as much as they can. I think the only downside to having Baz Luhrmann direct a biopic, I'm not sure if he's done a biopic before, but I feel like we can maybe stray into a more fictional rendition of Elvis's life. And I would hope from an Elvis biopic that it really touches on, some of like his controversies or flaws as a person. Like, being in the infancy of rock and roll as it was blooming, there was a lot of drug use and other things that he was involved in. But this film is PG-13, which makes me think it's going to be a glamorous rendition of his life with all the negatives cut out. And I think that's something that you would really want, like internal character conflict, because Elvis, he really did have it. He had I'm sure even from his own point of view, like mistakes were made in many regards.
Right. And those are the best sort of biopics. Is just like seeing like seeing both sides of the character, because no one is truly good or no one is truly. I mean, some people are maybe truly evil, but like but like like that's what makes the character interesting at the end of the day, like seeing both sides and just going from there. But I was also actually looking at the Black Phone. I was looking at the trailer just now. I was like, I forgot about this movie. I was like, this movie looks really sick. It's a very new approach to horror, which like the horror franchise needs sort of like a new spin on stuff, so I'm excited for that too.
It strikes me as slasher meets supernatural horror.
Yeah. What else? How are you feeling about Lightyear? What do you think about seeing that?
No, I'm not. I'm not. That would. No, I think that one's a hard pass for me because one, it's not canon to the Toy Story films. I think it is a standalone, or it's going to be its own IP, because Buzz Lightyear I think was one of the most popular characters from those films. Spun his own TV show back in the day. And I think that's kind of what this is going for. Chris Evans or not, I'm not really interested.
Yeah, and I'm just like, so is this like a true backstory which they're advertising this as, or is it just like some fillers sort of stuff to just make a story out of an iconic character which they probably know is going to make money, which also on top of that, this makes money, they're going to make a Woody backstory now too, where like,
Oh
he's on a
God,
farm
yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Woody the sheriff.
Right, exactly. And it's actually I would be kind of hyped for a Woody
Yeah, I think I
backstory.
would be more excited
A
for a Woody
Western?
stand.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be so sick. Actually, now I think about it. But other than that, I'm excited. Even though superhero fatigue is setting in on the both of us. Like I'm going to watch Thor: Love and Thunder, of course. That's coming out soon. But also, there's a video game called the Capcom Fighting Collection dropping on the 24th. There's a bunch of old Capcom fighting games, Darkstalkers, like Street Fighter 2, like all that sort of stuff. So that's coming out. I'm excited for that. But
Look, I'm looking
yeah.
at the month of July just to
Mhm.
see what's a little bit beyond the horizon. And I think,
Ooh.
in my view, this has been a great year for film and television. It's been phenomenal. Like we got a new season of The Boys. Better Call Saul is reaching its climactic conclusion, and so far that season has been killer. On the film side, a lot of the movies that were held back because of the pandemic got a release. And it's just been nonstop every week. It feels like there's something worthwhile going to see.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
in July, it looks like it's picking back up because we have Thor: Love and Thunder on July 8th, which looks fantastic. Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. Like, my goodness, one of the best actors of our time in the MCU finally. Let's go. But then we also have next month Wrong Place, which I think may be Bruce Willis's last film ever.
Right, because of his condition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's so sad.
Yeah, that's really a tragedy. Like Bruce Willis has always been one of my favorite action heroes to watch because I'm a big Die Hard guy. I thought Die Hard was one of the best action films ever made. Withstands the test of time, but he's had a great career, so I don't think he should have any regrets. So I'll enjoy his one-off. Like, looking at the plot summary, it says a methamphetamines cook hunts down the former police chief of a small town in order to silence him before he can deliver eyewitness testimony against his family, but ultimately finds himself up against more than he had bargained for. Like, that just sounds like, a Bruce Willis movie that you'd be like, yep, grab the popcorn, turn the brain off, and just have fun.
For sure. And then right after that too, like we have Nope, which is another Jordan Peele joint. Like that trailer is very weird, but I feel like at this point Jordan Peele has us by that. Like, you want to see something weird for an hour and a half, 2 hours, come see this movie, right? Like, I think I have to go see this movie just to. It's probably like, imagine the memes coming out of this movie. I feel like there's gonna be some pure meme culture from this.
I feel like Jordan Peele is just one of the most talented writer directors in Hollywood right now. He really is. It's so crazy because he's a guy from Mad TV. He's a comedic actor, and I feel like comedic actors, I don't know, maybe there's like a stereotype or like something against them. I always get the vibe like actors like Seth Rogen and Will Ferrell are just not taken seriously as creators in comparison to somebody like, Leonardo DiCaprio, which is really wild because we've seen people like Jonah Hill go into more serious films and crush it. You see people like Jordan Peele now, like, directing these films, and like his 2 films before this are freaking great. Like, I don't know anything about Nope. I watched the trailer and was like, wow, that made no sense to me whatsoever. If it didn't have Jordan Peele's name attached to it, I was just like, weird. Right. Yeah. But because it's Jordan Peele, like, I'm going to be there day one, giddy and excited. They also got Keke Palmer in that film, and I'm just a sucker for anything Keke Palmer is in because, I grew up watching as a kid, and I still have a massive crush on her. She can do no wrong in my eyes.
Hey, right. Let's see. After that, Bullet Train looks, man, that was like a nice little action movie especially with I'm blanking on his name, Brad Pitt. Like, oh my God. Like, I don't even know the last movie I saw Brad Pitt in. I'm trying to think. But that movie looks phenomenal. It looks like a fun little action joint just to have fun with.
So you want to know what the last Brad Pitt film I watched was?
What is it?
It was Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
What?
I watched it again to show it to my wife because it was like, that mid 2000s cheese. You know what I'm saying? It
I know
was such
exactly
a
what you're saying.
corny action film, but at the same time, like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt were just like, you know, beaming with charisma. Of course, we learned a little bit later why that was a film that broke up a marriage and started a new one.
Right.
So Brad Pitt, you know, he's one of the best actors representing from Missouri. He's from Missouri.
Wait,
so of
wait.
course,
Did I just go through 22 years without knowing Brad Pitt is from Missouri?
Yeah, he's from Missouri.
What? Wow. Okay, that's super cool.
Hey, let me look it up, but I think he's from Joplin.
Wow. I just recently learned that I think his name is John Hamm. I don't know if that's his first name, but he's from Mad Men. Yeah, he's from Missouri. I was like, we have a lot of talented people from Missouri, man. Representing. I love it.
Oh, Brad Pitt is from Springfield. Yeah, John Hamm being from St. Louis. I think he's got to be one of the most famous actors coming out of St. Louis. I feel like the most famous.
Yeah. Speaking of John Hamm, like I just recently saw Top Gun Maverick. Did you see the movie?
No, tell me what you thought.
Oh man, that movie was so sick. Like, here's the thing. I'm not the biggest like reacher outer for, you know, action movies, because it's usually just a movie where like if a bunch of friends are gonna see it, I'll go see it too. Like I had the same experience with Mission Impossible Fallout or whatever the most recent one was. But man, was this movie just so like there's a certain soul to it. Like I don't know how to explain it, but specifically that third act was just, I was just glued to my seat, man. Like, I haven't felt that in such a long time, but the characters, the action, the, you know, character development, all of that. It just, if you haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, you need to see it like as soon as possible, because that's easily my favorite movie this year. Thinking about other movies I've seen this
Holy
year.
cow, your favorite movie this year?
Man.
Okay, I gotta watch it like ASAP Rocky then.
It was so sick. Like, for sure, go see it.
I feel like, so I'm a Marine Corps veteran for our audience. Watching that film on a military base would probably be insane, because the cool thing about being in the military is they actually have theaters on the bases that you can pay like a very discounted price. They're very different from commercial theaters, because there's a mass amount of like pro-troop propaganda that airs before the film. It's kind of hilarious. They have like all the famous actors that do like thank you for your service stuff, but it is completely a different vibe from any other theater you go watch, because troops are drunk, they're loud, they're rowdy. And Top Gun in the 80s was a film for those guys. Like it really was. I can only imagine just how like riled up everybody would be. And I would want that type of experience for Top Gun, especially if they have Danger Zone. Do they have Danger Zone in this one?
Oh, I believe they do. Yeah.
Yes. Like I would love to watch that film in a place like that.
But yeah, well, that's what we're excited for. We would love to hear what you guys are excited for. That's it from me. Is there anything else you would like to talk about, Caleb, before we end this?
No, that's all I have.
All right. Well, first episode in the books. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you later.